Bam. I need an intro. I get it. I need an intro. I got to do something. I'll be back. You didn't think I could do that, did you? All right, I did. I had to get out. I had to check on something. And so, how are you tonight? Never a good way to start the evening with a I have to leave moment. But you know what? I do this enough that whatever. How are you? I think that's where I'm going wrong with my streams. I'm not asking people how well they're doing. I'm not asking about them. And so, how are you? What's going on? It seems weird to me to ask how people are doing when there's very few people here. But that is what it is. So I did want to introduce myself. For those of you who don't know me, my name is John Schenk, and I am a real estate broker in South County, Missouri. And I own Deerwood Realty. And, all my life I've failed at employment completely. I never really got that job that took me over the top. I feel like I've got 2 graduate degrees. I feel like I probably could play in the workforce, but I tell you, I never wanted to. I always wanted to have my own business. I always wanted to see how that would go. And it's gone okay. But I never wanted to be like a corporate shill. I never really wanted to toe the company line. After I got my degrees, after I understood business for what it was, I just never wanted to be a part of it. And, but at the same time, like a moth to light, I've always been attracted to it. More so in the absurdity of it. We'll talk about stories all day long about, people working minimum wage and getting shot. Now you tell me why that's a good idea. Like, you're trying to feed your family and you get shot at work, like minimum wage. Like, why is that okay in our society? Like, we are the most advanced, our world is the most advanced it's ever been. And yet our employment laws are stuck from maybe the 1800s. I mean, none of the employment laws are written to the benefit of the employee. It's always to the benefit of the employer. And then at the same time, the employer also has difficulties. I mean, you have to pay Social Security, you have to pay all these unemployment, you have to pay all these things. And God forbid you miss a payment. The state comes right after you. The government comes right after you, happy to take away any income you have. And then what I hadn't seen in my life until I'd say fairly recently now, we've talked about, or we've seen the military industrial complex. Okay. As I was younger, I didn't believe it, but now, after Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, now Ukraine, I get it. I understand now. There is a military industrial complex, and they influence policy, specifically war policy. That's dicey. And then there's Big Pharma, which for some reason has been given a free pass for the past couple of years. But before that, they were actually held accountable. We have media companies now that are straight mouthpieces for the Communist Party of China, and no one says a word. And it's just bizarre to me how far things have shifted with corporations going quote unquote woke. And the Gillette ad, I'll never let it go, with the idea that, I'm a man, I like to buy razors to shave. And now the company that I buy razors from is going to berate me for being a man. Like, that's their advertising, berating me. And like, that was okay. Like, people thought that was going to fly. That's the world we live in. It's absurd. And the person that did that ad probably has another job making 6 figures somewhere else now. Lost the company something like $8 billion in market cap. but now they're going to go work someplace else and be edgy. That's the bizarre nature of this all. Crony capitalism. I mean, on a grand scale, people say they're against capitalism. I don't know that they are. They're against crony capitalism, and we see it everywhere. We see it everywhere. Yesterday, there was the story about the Twitter lawyer, and then conveniently in the article I was reading, her sister just happened to work for a startup that Twitter had bought for $1 billion and then sold, and then magically she's now on the board of this company that was sold by Twitter. It doesn't, maybe it was an arm's length transaction, but it just seems like if you look at some of the media in the country, you'll see that someone will work for an organization, work for a media organization, and the husband or wife will work for whatever political party's in charge. It's just so many bizarre things are happening to employment, and yet I have the utmost respect for the person that gets up in the morning, gets dressed, and goes out there and gets it done. Just those people that work, they don't complain, they do it every day, and they are being forgotten. They're literally being forgotten by the people at the top. And so am I pro worker? I mean, sure. Am I pro company? Am I pro free market? Sure. Do I know what, I mean, do I really mean free market? Yes. Do we have that now? Regulation has gotten out of hand. So I'm for business. I'm for companies. I'm for employees. I'm for everyone. The only thing I'm against is pretty much any sort of politician. I find them to be just disgusting cockroaches. And I'm sorry. When someone says this person was a career public servant for 50 years, I know that for at least 40 of those years, they've been stealing from the government, stealing from the people that they are supposed to be serving. So I have no use for any of that. But that's who I am. That's what I'm doing. The channel is all about, our nature of employment. Why do we go to work? Why do we put up with the absurdities at work? Why do we? I mean, because we need to feed our families. I mean, that's it. That's the reason. Like, is man's purpose more? I use man. I mean, are we supposed to be doing more? Do we go to work just because it fills time? I mean, it seems weird, doesn't it? Anyway, I've had terrible jobs. I'm sure you had terrible jobs. If you put the job in the chat, tell us how terrible it was. I'll tell you one. I thought it was interesting. I just noticed I have a cut on my finger, so that's why I stared there. I went to a university with my stepdaughter about a week ago, and when we went there, I met this woman that was she was as an administrator, but her job every day was to greet the new people, and then she would get up, and then she would literally walk down the hallway with the family and say, "Here, you can sit here until the person gets here. Can I get you a drink?" And I just found that to be so fascinating that I don't know if that's in that person's job description. I don't know how that goes, but I just found it to be the most fascinating thing in the world. Like, do you apply for that job? Like, how do they rate if you're good at getting up and greeting people and handing them coffee or soda or anything? I don't know. Do you need a college degree for that? That's the other thing that I think I've noticed more so now. But how do I say it? I get it. I get the laptop class. I understand the laptop class. I understand the credential class. Some people call it the credential class, where you have a credential but you don't know anything. All of these things have kind of caused me to want to produce a channel where we can talk about these issues. We can go over things and just have a good time. I had something that popped into my head real quick. I'm going to search for it while we're live, which is always a bad idea. But why not, right? Right now it's just you and me, so we'll be okay. Okay. This came out in June 2019. Let me put it right in the beginning. This is from Mother Jones, by far the not the exact right leaning space. But I wanted you to see this. I want to talk about this because it does fit in with what we were talking about tonight. So I need to share my screen. And here we go. Okay. So can you see this? Yes, you can. Let me get here. Oh no, I like to be talking in the corner. So that's where I am. This rise in everything has been this rise in the credential class. So look at the managers versus physicians on this graph. And this is only to 2015. Look at the administrators. Now, if you do teaching, you'll see the same thing in education. You get these administrators, these six-figure, they're technocrats. They don't do anything other than tell everybody else what to do. I mean, let me see if I can get a chart of administrators versus teachers. Let's see if it's they may say, well, that's just let's see if this is one. I don't know. I don't know that that's a good one, but anyway, I think that's a fair one. This is from Mark Perry. Now he's probably on the right. So here we go. So look here. I don't mean to be so scatterbrained. So let's just look at this. I went down. This is from 2019, by the way. So it's not new. I went down a rabbit hole last night. So today I'm going to torture you by telling you all about it. I started on Twitter where I learned that various versions of the chart below are extremely widespread. Maybe they won't be true. Maybe that's what he'll find. Two things immediately struck me. First, the number of administrators suddenly skyrocketed between 1993 and 1996. I can't think of any good reason for this. Second, it shows the number of physicians growing by only 150%. And I know that's not right. In reality, the number has more than tripled. So that got me curious. Where did this chart come from? The number of physicians is pretty easy to get. Right now, there's a little more than 1 million physicians and surgeons in the U.S. It's also pretty easy to get the number for the entire healthcare sector, about 16 million. The hard part is figuring out how many administrators there are. Of the sources cited in the chart, neither the BLS nor the NCHS is going to help with this. So I went searching for Himelstein and Woodhandler. They're prolific writers, but the clause I found in this chart was the one that goes to 1987. That matches the original chart through 1987, though it's worth noting that they're forced to make a lot of assumptions to get there. The reason is simple. There's no remotely reliable measure of the number of healthcare administrators in America. In fact, I can't figure out where H&W got theirs. It's allegedly sourced to the 1989 Statistical Abstract of the United States, but I sure can't find it there. And I have no reason to think the federal government has ever tracked this, but let's plow it anyway. In 2013, they estimated that per capita healthcare administration costs, not personnel, had increased from $450 to 1987 to $1,059 by 1999. And this is a very broad number since they include things like time doctors spent on admin chores. Adjusted for inflation of population growth, there's an increase of about 80%. But that chart kicked off this post shows an increase about 4 times during that period. The H&W number is far more believable. I suspect that 4 times increase is an artifact of some kind, perhaps due to reclassification of job functions, or maybe it was just a mistake. In any case, it's been carried over since any chart since. Okay, here you go. So everyone, so then this is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics for 2018. Everyone here is a practitioner or medical assistant, not administrator. It adds up to 13 million with a total of 16 million in healthcare. That leaves 3 million unaccounted for. These are the administrators, receptionists, billing clerks, etc. Insurance adjusters and other outsiders add about 2 million to the total, all of them in administration, which gets us to roughly 5 million administrators out of 18 million total, or 28%. H&W estimated that national administration and clerical workers make up 27% of the healthcare labor force in 1999, increasing at a rate that would get us 30% by today. So the right number is probably between 28 and 30%. Let's call it 29%. Put all that together, and it suggests the number of administrators has increased about 30 to 40% since 1999. So what does that chart really look like? I have 3 different suggestions. The first puts together the data points I've outlined so far. It's 115% increase. The second comes from the federal government, and it's their estimate of government admin costs plus private insurance administrator costs. This does not include hospital billing clerks, IT departments, and so forth. but it still ought to provide us with a benchmark of sorts for the growth rate of administration. Okay. Finally, there's a chart based directly on figures from Himmelstein and Woodhandler. That's there. This is nowhere near the 3,000% growth on the original chart, but it's still pretty high. It's probably said that the healthcare administration has grown somewhere on the order of 1,000% over the last 50 years. But why? This is what brings us to the most correct chart. Here's the thing. 50 years ago, we didn't have MRI techs or transplant hospitals or routine ultrasounds or proton beams for cancer patients. 4 years ago, I spent a couple of weeks at the City of Hope to treat my cancer, the treatment I got, not to mention the entire campus in its current form didn't even exist in 1970. In other words, the main reason that administration has gotten bigger is because the medical care has gotten bigger. Since 1970, adjusted for inflation, hospital healthcare spending has gone up about 600%, and the number of healthcare workers have gone up about 500%. It's only natural that the number of administrators would go up at least as much as well. So the real question is, how much has administration gone up above and beyond the overall growth in healthcare? Here's the answer based on two of the estimates above. Once you take into account the growth in healthcare generally, the share devoted to administration has gone up by 50 to 100%. That's a lot, but it's also not that surprising. In 1970, the healthcare industry spent approximately $0 on IT and management. Today, they spend a bundle, and all that is admin overhead. Purchasing has exploded too, since there are far more things to purchase these days. Regulations have grown along with technology, so compliance offices have grown. Doctors and hospitals have always spent hours on the phone arguing with insurance companies, but that's probably grown too. I don't mean for any of this to excuse the growth rate of administration, which might be higher than it should be, and there's certainly no question that our absolute level of administrative overhead is insanely high. H&W estimate, for example, that the share of workers dedicated to administration is about a third higher than the U.S. than in Canada. Needless to say, this is largely because Canada doesn't waste boatloads of money on private insurance and all the overhead that implies. The bottom line, the health care system has grown tremendously over the past 50 years, but that's mostly because we have a lot more doctors. Mostly not because we have a lot more doctors. It's because we have MRI techs and ultrasound specialists and more kinds of nurses and more kinds of pills and enormous proton beams to cure cancer. These proton beams are massively expensive and require large staff, but that doesn't mean you need any more oncologists per patient. To manage all this new stuff, we need bigger admin and support staffs. As a result, admin and support have grown about 50 to 100% on a relative basis. That's the real number. So that's what he says. It has grown. Not to this number, okay? Not to this number. My point is simply that we've gotten to a point where we have much more administrators in everything than we ever had before. That's my point. Oh man, I messed that up. So I want to put the link in my sheet so that you can see it, so you don't think I'm just making stuff up. Okay. And then we will do the Mark Perry. Okay. And he went and looked at chart of the day, administrative bloat in U.S. public schools. This was in 2013. Here you go. U.S. public schools, growth in students and school personnel, 1950 to 2009. Man, when I went to a school, okay? I live in the place where I went to high school. Okay. Actually, I live in the place where I went to grade school completely. And we had at the, let's just do it, the middle school that I remember. And that was a long time ago. We had a principal and we had 2 guidance counselors for the whole school. Okay. Now there's like curriculum directors. There's like 7 counselors. There's 2 assistant principals. There's like a superintendent that just oversees, the building. It's just the administration versus the teachers has gotten out of whack. And these jobs that they're paying the administrators are not cheap. I don't know if it's from No Child Left Behind. I don't know if it's from that legislation. All I know is that it got out of hand. And it seems like everything is this like technocrat space that I just don't like. But let's get through it. Here we go. Okay. So America's schools are bloated with bureaucracy and scanning results. Nationwide since 1950, the number of public school administrative and non-teaching positions has soared 702%, while the student population increased just 96%. Over that same period, teachers' numbers have also increased 252%, but still far short of administrators and non-teaching personnel. Notably, that hiring trend has been just as prominent over the past 2 decades. From 1992 to 2009, students' number increased 17%, whereas administrators and other non-teaching staff rose 46%. And during that time, some states actually lost students yet kept hiring more non-teachers. Of course, those hiring patterns might be warranted if students' academic gains kept pace. Academic outcomes, however, have not experienced similar growth. Public high school graduations peaked around 1970, and government data show reading scores on the National Assessment of Educational Progress fell slightly between 1992 and 2008. Math scores on the National Association of Educational Progress long-term trend were stagnant during the same period. Do we even do standardized tests anymore? Are we even going to bother with those? It's 2022. It's really wild, the world we're in. Such irresponsible use of tax dollars is indefensible. As state leaders continue to find ways to keep their fiscal houses in order, they shouldn't fret that today's economy is causing some to trim the fat in public schools. It will serve teachers, students, and taxpayers well. For example, had non-teaching personnel increased at the same rate as students nationwide, American public schools would have had an additional $24.3 billion annually, funds that could have been used to give quality teachers raises, scholarships to students in need, relief to taxpayers, or there's never relief to taxpayers, or some other worthy purpose. For some states, savings would be in the millions. For others, they're in the billions. But here you go. That was in 2013. If you think it's gotten any better than that, come on. So what's my point? We've seen this rise in administrators everywhere. And what do the administrators do? They create more policies and also more administrators. Why do they do that? Well, it's like helping each other out. It's like the old idea of like job protection, where you are a mechanic and you break something so that some other mechanic has to be hired to fix it. And I don't know how to say this. If you're an administrator, good for you. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you figured it out. That's where the money is. Go to it. Okay. I'm not, you're fine with me. We're not criticizing you. If you're a hospital administrator, I think someone in my family wants to be an administrator in a hospital. I think it's absolutely crazy, but whatever. So anyway, that was that. I hate to, I'm going to put on my notes here. I had my ringer on. I never had my ringer on. That's wild. So anyway, I just thought that was interesting. I thought I hate to do it at the last moment like that. I guess I should have prepared more, but it is what it is. Let's continue. This is the first of the articles that I wanted to go over to. It says, damning allegations emerge in wake of Renown CEO's firing. So what is Renown? Renown is apparently a medical center. Okay. Multiple sources confirmed with This Is Reno. There are numerous allegations facing Renown and the hospital's now former CEO, Tony Slonim. Slonim was fired for cause yesterday as part of an investigation. Okay. So the point is there's a hospital CEO that's been fired for cause as part of an investigation. Now, none of this is, these are all allegations in the article. I want to make that clear. They haven't been proven in a court of law. I don't want to smear someone. I'm just going based on the article. It says, allegations range from sexual harassment, unethical behavior by top executives, financial mismanagement, and an organizational culture rife with dysfunction and employee mistreatment. The investigation has not concluded, two sources said. Allegations against Slonim were proved to be factual from a multiple of sources, a current employee told This Is Reno. Hospital financial losses by the hospital are from executive overhead and financial folly. Most of Renown's senior executives make more than $500,000 a year. Slonim, according to public filings, made $1.7 million in 2020. Okay, just understand, there are so many people in this world today that are struggling, in the United States even, struggling, okay, just to make it. And then you have these people that make significant amounts of money and still manage to just bungle it. That's the story to me, is these people are not dumb. You know, they're just like vapid. They have no soul. Just a value system that's totally off the rails. Renown is a nonprofit hospital, which under the Affordable Care Act rules must serve the public interest and provide broad community benefits. A number of sources reached today by This Is Reno, of a number of sources, only one former employee spoke highly of Renown. They wanted to remain anonymous, however. I was shocked, they said, of the allegations reported by This Is Reno. I left on good terms. Some said simply Slonim was not a good guy to work with. He's an egotistical prick. One local official said, speaking on the condition of anonymity. He is not community-minded. He is narcissistic. He has not been a partner with our community the entire time he was at the helm. Okay, now, if you're a CEO of an organization, okay, does everyone love you? Ever? So let's take that into consideration. I mean, sometimes, in hospitals, you get management teams, like some CEO will be moved, like this person here has been let go. The new person will bring in a new management team. Most of the top jobs will be replaced with their own people. It's that's going to cause some people to be angry. A current employee said the allegations against the hospital should not detract from the good work of Renown employees and does not affect the ability for people to get good health care. Well, that's nice. Employees work really hard and suffered through the pandemic. The hospital is facing some labor issues as elsewhere in Reno. People here have a passion for healthcare, and the ability to provide good care has nothing to do with the CEO. They said the firing of Slonim by the board was a strong move because the issues at the hospital have been brewing for a long time under Slonim. However, they said Renown's board of directors needs to be held to account. So they're saying that even the board of directors is a mess. The allegations of financial corruption and treatment of Renown employees are ongoing, they said. Something the community is not broadly aware of is the attrition of highly knowledgeable and skilled senior executives that have left in the past year. They were put in a position to voluntarily resign or were fired because they didn't agree with the CEO. Okay, now it says unnamed Renown officials denied the allegations. Certain allegations were brought to the attention of the board. Somebody at Renown wrote in an email, "We take all allegations seriously." Upon learning of the allegations, the audit and compliance community of the board of directors launched an independent investigation with the assistance of outside counsel. All other allegations made were investigated, found to be without cause, and all other Renown staff members were cleared of any allegations made. Very administrative. We were talking about administrative and all this stuff. We're hiring lawyers, we're hiring outside counsel, independent investigations. It says hospital facing lawsuits. Ty Winfield was a chief operating officer at Renown for years. He was fired last year for no apparent reason. That's according to a lawsuit he filed last fall against Renown, which the lawsuit claims is restricting him from working under Renown's non-complete clause. Now, look, if he's fired for no reason, he should not be restricted from working under a non-compete clause. You fired the person. In August 2021, Renown terminated plaintiff not for cause, but refused to provide any information for the reason. Winfield's lawsuit states, when plaintiff requested more information from Renown's chief human resources officer, she stated she was not involved in any of this and had no background. That's kind of weird. August 2021, Renown terminated plaintiffs not for cause, but refused to provide any information as to the reason. When plaintiff requested more information from Renown's chief human resources officer, she said she was not involved in any of this and had no background. The lawsuit also claims Winfeld's personal belongings were seized by Renown and have not been returned, despite requests from his attorney. When Renown terminated plaintiff, it insisted he depart from Renown's offices without gathering all his personal items, including a number of personal files and documents, including important files related to various community boards on which the plaintiff serves. That plaintiff had stored in his office, the complaint alleges. These files were plaintiff's personal property, and Renown has no right to retain them. Well, that's an interesting question. Why do you have personal files at work? Is that a weird question? The McDonald Carano law firm is defending Renown in the case and denying any wrongdoing by the hospital. Renown attorneys filed a counterclaim against Winfeld in January, saying he violated his non-compete contract with the hospital. Winfeld has competed and continues to compete with the business of Renown Health in direct violations of the terms of non-compete too. So how is he working? How is he suing that? How is he suing that he can't get a job when they say he's got a job? Winfeld's lawsuit also alleges Renown has restricted access to his retirement funds. Another pending case involves 54 anesthesiologists who sued after the hospital terminated its contract with the doctors' managing company. They were also alleging Renown's non-compete clause prevents them from working. What are we doing with these non-compete clauses? Have you heard about the Biden administration? They're like, we're getting rid of the non-competes. Like, this is ridiculous. I'm sorry, my ear itches. I mean, I don't understand. Like, what do these people do? No offense. That's like a public, like a private company secret. What are anesthesiologists doing? That's like a secret. Like, are they better than any other anesthesia? Is there a trade secret for them? See, that's why I don't like non-compete clauses. I think that's ridiculous. Limited recourse for complaints. Sources said taking complaints higher up resulted in threats of termination or a lack of response by high-level Renown officials. One person claimed employees were threatened with termination if they spoke with Renown's board of directors. Tony Slonim threatened the hospitalist group with termination if we spoke to the board of directors, a source alleged. Is it reasonable to assume that you could be fired by going up the chain of command because your particular boss isn't responding to your complaints or allegations? I think that's possible. I think it's possible. I don't think it's a nice thing to do, but I think that it's definitely possible in an organization. 2 executives shown to still be employed on Renown's website were named by different sources as being key players in what they said was corruption. Renown HR Director Michelle Sanchez Bickley needs to be exposed, a source said. She is as corrupt as Chief Marketing Officer Suzanne Henry. The two of them have so much power. The poor HR staff has so much dirt on all the corruptness, but could never do anything about it. Suzanne Henry and Michelle Sanchez are the most unethical execs at Renown, another source said. They fired people unjustly, covered up for bad executives, and have far too much power. Tony Slonim was aware of all of this. I hope both those women also get terminated. 2 people said mass layoffs last year were followed by rehiring many of those positions. Look into the layoffs that happened in July. Over 200 people were laid off, and many of those positions have come back. Another said since the July layoffs, most of those positions have been brought back, which can be a legal HR nightmare. So the allegation there is they fired 200 people, and then they hired different people, but they laid them off essentially. That's the allegation that I'm reading. Now, if it's true, I don't know. Former employees under gag orders. Former employees have been forced to sign confidentiality agreements in order to get severance package benefits. That's why sources will not comment on the record at all. Neither Winfield nor his attorney would provide comment for this story. Slonim made them all sign gag orders. To get their severance, they had to agree to not say anything. There are others that are in the Renown golden handcuffs, either currently in litigation fighting for their retirement pay or currently in separation agreements, not allowing them to speak any wrongdoings they were privy to in exchange for their paychecks, another source said. There are several that are in current separation agreements with Renown, a source said. If they talk to anyone, they will lose hundreds of thousands of dollars. Their agreements are tied to the executive's retirement funds for the duration of the agreement, typically 2 years. This is why people are staying quiet. This is fascinating. PR efforts emphasize the positive. Renown's public-facing communications emphasized a positive image of the hospital and Slonim. The CEO was for years propped up as an influencer and TEDx speaker. Renown's marketing officer, Henry, interviewed last year for Health, a marketing website, commented on what she called Sloanim's well-crafted tweets with selfies. If you look at the Twitter feeds of Tony Slonim, CEO of Renown Health, and of the organization itself, you'll see well-crafted tweets with selfies, candid photos, and replies. Yes, replies. It's even more than your standard one-way corporate tweets, she said. We have certainly seen anecdotal evidence. When Dr. Slonim goes on an event and speaks, complete strangers will come up at the end and ask if they can take a selfie with him. This is fascinating. Hendry claimed that selfie tweets garnered the hospital international recognition for something no one paid attention to before. Two sources said the intentional branding efforts were expensive and offensive to many employees. The vision of the CEO was to build his rep on the national stage, and Henry was behind that. No expense was spared, and a number of people found that offensive. Numerous online comments made after Sloanim's fire yesterday were celebratory. Some people accused the hospital of paying for Sloanim's awards and public recognition. He was widely despised, a local official said. Sloanim's Twitter account no longer exists. This is fascinating. That sounds like a mess. That sounds like a mess. Hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of dollars on the line. But I guess kind of, I thought, here was my thinking on that article. Do we know if the CEO was being unethical? Do we know if the marketing manager was being unethical? Do we know if the HR woman was being unethical? We don't know. We don't know. And the maybe the argument or the point of this story is that we may never know, because the people that would know are being held hostage. If they speak anything to it, they don't get their retirement pension. That's what it's being alleged. Really, really dirty stuff. Really, really dirty stuff. And so again, what I'm trying to expose here or discuss or kind of work through is why go work in this environment? Why? And then how much does that change you as a person to have to, these people to be in this environment have to be unethical. They have to all kind of be this way. They're in the same pool. These people that get fired here are going to have to go work someplace else, and they will bring that same toxicity to other places. The reason why people act this way is they get paid a lot of money for it. $1.7 million is nothing to sneeze at. $500,000 a year is nothing to sneeze at. It's more money than I might ever see in my lifetime, in my entire lifetime. So anyway, this is kind of what I'm fighting against. I don't want to be in this swamp, this terrible pit. It's not worth it. My integrity is worth more than that. Now, we honestly don't know if the CEO even did anything wrong. Okay. We have no idea. Maybe he was a decent fellow and maybe he wasn't, but it's just fascinating. Maybe the board wanted to get rid of him, and so they said bad things about him. I mean, we don't know. So anyway, I wanted to share that. This is where I'm coming from. To me, this is not worth it for me. I don't want to be involved in this in my life. I don't want people holding my retirement hostage. I don't want to be signing non-disclosure agreements for tasks that are not trade secrets. I mean, I can understand if you were on a science team that was, let's just say, designing a new nuclear weapon, okay? And you had the drawings and everything in your possession. Well, now maybe you should sign a non-disclosure. But I mean, if you're a dry cleaner, that's pretty standard, I would think. If you're an anesthesiologist, pretty standard, I would think. No reason for the non-disclosures. So that's what I have on that one. I thought it was interesting. Maybe you will as well. Going to Forbes next, how to keep employee burnout from becoming your gravest security risk. I thought this was interesting. You mean to tell me that there's a correlation between employee burnout and security risk? Okay. Cybersecurity. Now, this could be a written article by this company. It says CEO, chief eliminator of obstacles at 1Password. But let's just read it. I mean, it could be a piece of marketing. I'm okay with it. It says cybersecurity attacks soared last year, and organizations of all shapes and sizes are bracing for further, more extreme threats in 2022. Experts predict a raise in elaborate schemes like triple extortion ransomware, in which bad actors extort money not just from the organization they've successfully breached, but also from that victim's clients, suppliers, and other business partners. Complex cyber attacks, such as sophisticated phishing, denial of service, and the latest twists on ransomware tend to grab headlines. But there's an often overlooked security threat that's particularly dangerous, precisely because it's masquerading as business as usual: employee burnout. And I thought, well, that's pretty interesting. What's that about? So it says, across industries, workers are reporting extraordinarily high levels of burnout. The phenomenon is a significant driver of the great resignations as American workers continue to leave their jobs in record numbers. Most security breaches, 85%, involve a human element. When we're feeling overburdened, overwhelmed, and checked out, we're particularly inclined to take the easy route, and the one that is littered with security minefields. Tackling burnout-driven breaches. Our company's recent State of the Access report found that burnt-out employees are dangerously apathetic about workplace security measures. They're more likely to skirt policies, take shortcuts, and download unapproved apps. Nearly twice as many burned-out employees pick easy passwords they won't forget and use the same password or just a few passwords for everything at work compared to those who aren't burned out. Now, do you believe that? I don't know. I only use like 6 or 7 passwords. Alarmingly, our study found that security professionals themselves, the very gatekeepers charged with safeguarding companies' treasured data, are disproportionately disengaged. Security professionals, we learned, were twice as likely as other workers to say that because of the burnout, they're completely checked out and doing the bare minimum at work, and that's putting organizations at risk. Really? You know, I can believe that. If you were an IT worker and all of a sudden we had to figure out a way for people to work from home, do you know the problems that would be causing it to start? There would have been a lot. And plus, people were probably thinking they were going to die. Not a good situation. So here we go. Here's some strategic moves. 1, make security human-centric. Too often there's a tension between security and convenience. Whether it's logging into a VPN or using a company-approved app that's clunkier than the unapproved one, employees make hundreds of decisions a day between what's safe and what helps them get more done. Between the explosion of cloud-based apps and the intermingling of work and home, employees are constantly logging in. Anytime we can erase the tension between security and convenience by making the secure thing to do also the easy thing to do, everyone wins. Now, that's true. I believe that. You know, let me relate that to my work in real estate. We have a significant problem in our industry with wire fraud. And that's basically like a phishing scam. So what happens is people break into other people's emails, okay? And then they just kind of wait. And then let's say you sold a house, and right before you I think it would actually be buy the house. Right before you buy the house, you get a message, an email from a title company or your agent or someone that says, hey, we need the funds for closing now. They give you a routing number and everything. You put that money there, and all of a sudden the money's gone. It never made it to the title company. The same thing with closing funds. So that's a problem. Now, one title company in St. Louis, where I live and work, they went to an email system where they would have to send us emails through their own system. But it was like a nightmare to get on. Like I wasn't able to read an email from the organization that sent it. I had to go log in specifically to their website to get my own email. And that's just not a way I can do business. It may be more secure, but it's just not the way I do business. And so I had to leave that title company immediately because it was totally not going to work. Number 2, embrace simplicity. Keeping security simple can free people from boring, repetitive tasks, allowing them to focus on more creative, satisfying work that requires higher level thinking. The right solutions can also remove human discretion from the security equation while lightening employees' cognitive load by reducing the number of decisions they must make. Despite the high level of automation, today's business world, too many workplaces still rely heavily on non-expert individuals to strictly follow critical and often complex security protocols. Show your security pros some love. The vast majority of security professionals we surveyed describe themselves as burnt out as compared to 80% of office workers overall. Only 4% more. And significantly burned out security officials were more than twice as likely to say security rules and policies aren't worth the hassle compared with those who are only somewhat burned out. These stark findings are a wake-up call. Organizations would do well to invest in identifying the sources of disengagement and depletion among their tech security teams in particular. Has the pivot to remote work been excessively taxing for these teams? Yes. Have they been appropriately recognized for their above and beyond efforts? Probably not. Have they been inadvertently excluded from company-wide policies and practices designed to re-energize the workforce like mandatory days off when they're really actually off? Get vocal about mental health. Once a taboo topic in the workplace, mental health conversations are now front and center in the best organizations. Leaders can foster these conversations by creating Slack channels, virtual meetings, and wellness surveys devoted to the topic, giving employees an opportunity to share their experiences and access resources. According to a recent study, workers who feel that their employees support their mental health are not only less likely to experience mental health symptoms, but they also report higher job satisfaction and more positive views of their company and its leaders. What do you think about that? Mental health at work, giving employees resources. Like if your job is terrible, maybe that's causing your mental health issues. Check your culture. Sometimes it's possible to boost employees' mental health by giving them less work or more predictable work. And sometimes burnout has less to do with crushing workloads and more to do with a company's broader culture and environment. When workers feel their contributions are recognized, they're treated fairly, and they're encouraged and they're inspired to play to their strength. They report higher levels of engagement and lower levels of burnout. The positive culture may also inspire employees to adhere to security measures and make ex-employees feel less likely to attempt breaches. In short, be nice. I don't know. I don't really like that one. It didn't do anything for me. I feel bad. I'm sorry that I went through it. I thought it was going to get better. But the idea is simply that if you're a burnt out employee, you don't care about internet security. Ironically, if you don't care about internet security and you have a breach, then you're already overtaxed and underwhelmed. IT group is going to have to work even harder and be even more overtaxed, which is like bad. Let's move on. Internet backs worker who quit quote unquote toxic job after being denied a lunch break. That's kind of fascinating. Let's see what this is about. It says, the internet has slammed a company after a worker revealed he quit his job because he lost the right to a lunch break. Shared on the popular Reddit community r/anti-work, user Tyrone Stitches shared this story, which now has over 66,000 upvotes and thousands of comments. In the post, the user explained the story. I've been working there for 4 months. I was never late and always ready like 15 minutes before my shift starts. Today I had a tough morning, in a bad mood, and it was 6 minutes late for work. My manager called me to his office complaining about why I didn't call him to say I'm going to be late. I told him that I didn't think about calling him as I knew that I would only be a little bit late. The Redditor explained that after some back and forth with his manager, he was told he was not allowed to take a lunch break because he was late and it was busy. I didn't bring any lunch, so I asked if I could at least grab a sandwich before starting my shift. He agreed, but only to cut half an hour of my pay. The poster explained that he agreed and left to get a sandwich, but then wrote, it's been an hour and a half now since I left, and I still haven't returned. My manager called me, and I told him I quit. I don't regret it yet. U.S. federal law does not require lunch or coffee breaks at work. Isn't that fascinating? When employers do offer short breaks lasting around 5 to 20 minutes, federal law considers these breaks as compensable work hours that should be included in the hours worked during the week. Longer meal breaks, around 30 minutes, serve a different purpose than coffee or snack breaks and thus are not work time and are not compensable. Some states do have laws about required breaks for employees. For example, in California, employers must provide 30-minute unpaid breaks to non-exempt employees who work at least 5 hours per day. In contrast, Idaho does not have any meal or break requirements. Now, see, this is what I've been talking about with my new channel. What the hell are we doing where people aren't allowed to have a lunch break or any sort of break? Like there's no law that says that you're required to give it. I just can't believe that. It's crazy. Flooded with comments, posters condemned the business's actions toward the worker. One Redditor said, I think it shows the management is super toxic. People need breaks. If the people doing the work don't take lunch, their performance will fall apart. One commenter said, you made the right decision. F that guy and F that place for letting him treat people that way. Another user wrote, dang, what a toxic work environment. You did well. You deserve better. And I'm sure you'll find something better. Take care of yourself. Now, a couple things. One, it's interesting. When I'm on a listing call, okay, if I think I'm going to be more than 5 minutes late, I text my buyer and I say, hey, I'm going to be more than 5 minutes late. I'm sorry. My GPS says I'll be there at this point in time. And they're normally pretty good with that because sometimes they're late. Okay. So it's like a give and take thing. Now, we don't know the type of job this person had. Like, let's say that they worked at a factory and you really have to be in front of the machine at a certain time. Okay. And now you're not at the machine. Well, that's a problem. That's a problem because now you're costing the company product that can't otherwise be made up. So I could see that. Now we don't know, since we don't know the type of job this was. So that's kind of key. The second part of this is, what is this manager doing that they have time to call the employee? And then also, like, what is this manager doing that they can automatically pull a half-hour lunch break, like pull the hours for it, like the compensation? Like, how do they have that power? Shouldn't that be part of HR? It's just, to me, this seems a little bit off, the whole thing. We can't know if the Redditor is telling the truth. He could be, or she could be, embellishing the truth. It makes a better story. Let's be honest. If it was a story like, hey, I'm just a crappy worker and I go in late every day and I hate my boss and I hate my job and you know what, I'm just not going to go do it anymore. That story isn't as exciting as the one that he told. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think it was okay? The part that I wanted to go over on this one is that it says the internet backs worker who quit toxic job. You know, it's always easy to give someone else advice, especially if you're not going to be, especially if you don't suffer any consequences for your decision. It's always like, I don't know if you were a little kid, but did you ever watch like little kids and there was a fight? And all the kids said, you should go fight that guy. And the guy's like, I don't think I want to go fight that guy. And it's like peer pressure. You go fight that guy. It's kind of like that with the internet. It's like, you should do this. You should do that, but never in your own shoes, you know, like then they're not allowed to tell you what you should do. I always thought that was kind of fascinating. It's easy to give advice when you're not impacted by it. Let's do one other one. I thought this was interesting and then we'll head out for today. but I just wanted to check my chat, make sure that nobody was sneaking in, and I wasn't able to chat with him. So let's go over this. I thought it was so now it's clearly in Oklahoma because it says Oklahoma. Okay, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. It says teen employee punched by customer in Salina grocery store. Now, my complaint about this is simply, you go to work, you don't go there with the assumption you're going to get punched like by a customer. Like, that's unruly behavior. That should be punished. The store should be, pressing charges for this situation. Here it goes. It says a teenager who works at a grocery store in Salina was knocked out by a customer. The young man said he's dealt with angry customers before. In his 3 years working at Harps, he's never experienced this. The surveillance video shows the moment 19-year-old Dalton McWhirt was punched in the face at work. When I woke up, I didn't know what happened, and so just watching it play out like that is crazy. Dalton said it was just a normal night at work at Harps Grocery. He was helping the last few customers. He said the man was upset about his bill and began cussing at him, so they asked him to leave. And I don't know, like, did they really ask him? It's like, sir, could you please leave? Is that how that went? A coworker had unlocked the door for the man, but he began shouting at her. So I walked over there because I was kind of scared he was going to hit her or something. He just punched me. Dalton said the punch knocked him out. He woke up with a busted lip, a concussion, and a swollen neck. He ended up going to the hospital. He said police were called. Since the man is a tribal member, the Cherokee Nation took over the case. The man was recently charged with 1 count of misdemeanor assault and battery. I think it's unbelievable because it's taken 2 weeks for a warrant to even be signed. So I think it's just unbelievable that it's taken 2 weeks. Dalton's mom, Melinda, said she's thankful it stopped with that one punch, but this entire situation has been frustrating. It's just infuriating that it's a misdemeanor. But I mean, if that's what it is, then as long as we can just get justice for what happened, she said. Dalton said he's thankful for support he's had from the community, but he's also been on edge ever since it's happened. It's crazy because I've always felt welcome in town, just like I could go pretty much anywhere, and having that pretty much cut off from me is crazy. So my thing is this, okay? Like, you work minimum wage. Why in the world is it okay for you to be treated this way at your place of employment? It's okay to be knocked out. Now you say, well, no one's saying it's okay. No, it happened. Where was the security? He said that he's had to deal with angry customers in the past. What's that going to do to this young man's, life? As far as, is he always going to be going to different jobs, worried that some wacko is going to knock him out? And that's what I'm saying. You're working minimum wage and you get attacked by someone who's not in your family. Not that would make it okay, but you have no idea who this person is. And you're being attacked at your office, at your place of work. In this case, he's a checker at a grocery store. I mean, this is ridiculous. And I don't know what the answer is. I think my thing would be twofold. One, we have to recognize that if people are working these jobs, even these part-time jobs with no benefits, they deserve a good amount of compensation for that. And second, if they are working in a place where the possibility for harm exists, perhaps security measures should be taken. I mean, I'm not saying that he was trying to protect the other person, but he kind of was trying to help his coworkers. We saw this at the McDonald's in New York, where an employee was stabbed trying to protect others. We just can't have that. We just can't have that as a society. I have advocated for the longest time that says a law that something like this says, if you attack someone at work, if you murder someone, if you injure someone, fight someone, anything like that, if you assault a worker, that is a penalty that is significantly worse than if it's somebody just on a weekend or some weird ass thing like that. I really do mean it. We're not respecting the workforce in any way. We're not showing anybody in the workforce respect. And I think a functioning society should have workplace safety. And by safety, I mean, we shouldn't expect our workers to get killed on the job. Even if they made a lot of money, you only get one life. So that's all I have for you tonight. I know we went all over the place. What did we learn tonight? Well, let's get into it. The first thing is I think that we have an administrator class that is growing kind of out of control in many different industries. That's number one. Number two, the idea that there's employee burnout for causing security risks is fine. To me, it's like, of all the problems, everyone probably has burnout at this point. The next thing we learned is that if you're a CEO at a hospital, some people are going to hate you, and you may be a bad person. And then finally, the internet says that it's okay to quit a job that's toxic after being denied a lunch break. I don't really have an opinion. I kind of side, I guess, with the worker if what they wrote is true. But I don't know how we would prove that. It sounds reasonable. It sounds like it could have happened. And so anyway, that's what I have for you tonight. I made it through the broadcast. I didn't see anybody in chat. I'm sorry about that, but I'd really like to kind of enjoy the show together. So if you get a chance, I'd normally do every night except for Sunday night at 9 p.m. And I do have a Twitter account at Our Employment. And if you go there, I typically will announce if I'm going to live stream or not for the night. I don't normally set them ahead of time, like the day before, because based on what I'm doing, like tomorrow night, I'm showing houses at least until like 7:30, 8 o'clock. And then I need to rush back to the house, put something together for the live stream if I do decide to do one. In addition to all the other marketing and everything else I need to do for the day. Sometimes it gets a little dicey, but I do enjoy it. And I do hope we can grow this into something that's more fun and enjoyable for everyone over time. So with that, I'm going to head on out. Thank you for watching. I will catch you on the next one. Peace.